Hi, my name's Barbara Underwood, and today I'm going to be doing my speech about concussions in the NFL and how the NFL needs to do more to protect its own players. And here's my audience member. It's my fiance. There he is. So, imagine going to work each day and putting your heart and soul, your health and well being at risk, but being paid millions of dollars to do so. Now imagine you work with 52 people, and most of you are going to suffer a concussion or a traumatic hit to the head at least once a day during football season. Football is the most popular sport in the United States. People tune in on Mondays, Sundays, and Thursdays. They cheer on their favorite team, and they cheer on when their team scores, and they cheer on even louder when their favorite player makes a big hit on an opposing player. It's just the nature of football. But with that, there's an increased risk in concussions and head injuries, which are believed to be the major causes of diseases such as ALS, dementia, Alzheimer's, depression, and other neurological problems that many retired NFL players face. A study was published in 2012 that found that NFL players are twice as likely to develop and die from neurological degenerative diseases, and players at certain positions are 3 times more likely to develop and die from these diseases. But the NFL has sidestepped this issue for years and hidden the truth from the public and even from their own players, and how the hits to the head affect players in both the short and the long term. It's only been recently that new rules have been implemented that when a player gets a concussion, they're not allowed to play for a certain amount of days until cleared by a doctor. But the nature of the sport is still leading to many players suffering head trauma each year. So today, first I'm going to explain to you a little bit about concussions and player safety issues in the NFL and why this affects fans. I'll tell you about the dark side of NFL games, and I'll tell you what happens to many NFL players after they retire. Now, football is obviously an inherently dangerous sport. Anyone who's ever seen the video of Joe Theismann's leg getting broken can attest to that. But some injuries don't start showing symptoms until years after the player retired, or in some cases, even after the player's death. Studies by Boston University have shown a direct link between concussions and neurological diseases. And these same researchers theorized that a football lineman at the NFL level will sustain up to 1,400 impacts per season. That is 1,400 instances when it is possible for a player to suffer a concussion. A study published in Neurology Medical Journal in 2012 separated the speed players like running backs from the non-speed players such as linebackers. And the study found that speed players are 3 times more likely than a non-speed player to die of a neurodegenerative disease. Now, players used to be allowed and sometimes encouraged to keep playing through concussions. In fact, it was only in 2009 when NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell sent a memo to all teams stating that players may not return to games or practice on the same day if they exhibit any concussion-like symptoms. The rule used to be if they still showed symptoms 15 minutes after the hit. Roger Goodell is quoted in the memo as saying, "This new return to play statement reinforces our commitment to advancing player safety." While no research conclusively ties playing in the NFL with neurological disease, you should know that the NFL was sued by over 200 former players that claimed not only did the NFL know about the dangers involved with multiple mild traumatic brain injuries, but, quote, deliberately ignored and actively concealed the information from the plaintiffs and all others who participated in professional football. So why would a multi-billion-dollar company that's already been in hot water over player safety and lost in court to hundreds of its former employees because of injuries keep hiding information in regards to player safety and head injury? The answer is plain and simple. It's money. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar industry and it is the most watched sport in America. Players are expected to rise to the occasion and give the audience what they want, which is big hits. But if players are sidelined with concussions, fans are likely to become upset that their favorite player isn't playing and their team could possibly be losing. All because of an injury that many times gives off no outward symptoms. Players understand the pressure to play, and players that are labeled as injury prone or soft many times do not get the same contracts as players who tough it out and try to play through injuries. A prime example would be Kerry Robinson of the New Orleans Saints. After a vicious hit to the head, Robinson was diagnosed with a concussion by an on-field doctor. Robinson refused to leave the game, and a shouting match erupted between Robinson, the team doctor, and Saints head coach Sean Payton. Robinson spent the rest of the game with his helmet still on, yelling at the sidelines about not being allowed to get back into the game. But even if a player doesn't get a concussion, they still receive hits to the head. Former Saints player Steve Gleason, who is suffering from ALS, said he would get his bell rung several times each game. As you can see, the NFL claims to want to protect players from traumatic injuries, but has put a system in place where players feel they need to play as much as possible despite being injured or risk being labeled as weak or injury prone. Now you may be wondering what else the NFL could do to alleviate the risk of concussions during games. First of all, helmets that the NFL players wear are not designed to prevent concussions. More padding and new designs are needed to prevent the neck from snapping from a hard hit. The NFL needs to hire monitors to stand on the sideline of each game and watch for signs that a player has suffered a concussion. At this time, only team doctors and coaches watch for concussions, and many times those individuals are distracted by other things happening during the game. The NFL should also have mandatory testing of all NFL players, have NFL players go through yearly MRIs to look for brain injuries. As you can see, a lot can be done by the NFL to prevent concussions and head injuries, but to date, only a few rules have been changed, and the instances of concussions are actually going up, not down. So why are concussions a big deal? Research has shown the effects of multiple concussions and hits to the heads that they have on NFL players. A 2013 study done by JAMA Neurology found that cognitive defect and depression appear more common in aging former NFL players when compared to healthy controls. These defects are correlated with white matter abnormalities and changes in the regional cerebral blood flow. CTE is a buildup of proteins on the brain. It causes depression, aggression, and impulse control problems. So now let me tell you about a few players who were profiled in a PBS documentary called League of Denial, the NFL's concussion crisis. Former Chargers player Junior Seau committed suicide with a shot to the heart, and he left a letter asking that his brain please be studied, and CTE was found on his brain. Former Bears Dave Dearson committed suicide with a shot to the heart. He also left a letter asking that his brain please be studied, and scientists found CTE on his brain. And former Steeler player Terry Long committed suicide by drinking antifreeze, and researchers found CTE on his brain. And those players played in the NFL before the new concussion protocols were put into place. Now let me tell you about some players who played in the NFL after the new rules. The former Saint player Steve Gleason was diagnosed at age 31 with having ALS. He has no history of ALS in his family, and symptoms presented themselves less than 2 years after he retired. Former Chiefs player Jovan Belcher, at age 25, was drafted in 2009. In 2012, Belcher murdered his girlfriend, then committed suicide by a shot to the brain in front of then Chiefs head coach Romeo Crennel, and his brain could not be researched. And former Chargers player Paul Oliver, at age 29, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in 2013. His brain could also not be researched. And although scientists are still researching the effects of multiple concussions on the brain, it should be obvious to you by the examples I just gave that something is happening to these players' brains. In conclusion, it's too late right now to help Steve Gleason and Junior Seau, but one thing you can do is stop letting the NFL skirt the concussion issue. So let's look at the facts. Science has proven that concussions raise the risk very high of an NFL player developing neurological ailments after retiring. Multiple players are being diagnosed with neurological defects, and many more are dealing with depression and anger issues, and CTE is being found in many retired football players' brains. The NFL says it has a deep concern for player safety, yet has proven in the court of law that they knew how dangerous concussions and multiple hits to the head were and hid those facts from the public and from the players. The NFL has also added 13 more games to the schedule in the past 6 seasons, yet has only changed one rule in regards to whether or not a player should play after they've shown concussion-like symptoms. So players young and old are being affected by multiple hits to the head and concussions. So what can you do to prevent this concussion crisis? Demand that more rules be put into place and to protect players you admire and watch every Sunday. Roger Goodell is active on Twitter, and his handle is at NFL Commich, COMMICH. Perhaps if enough people ask questions in regards to player safety, the NFL will have no choice but to release more facts and take more steps into protecting the NFL players. Thank you.